Good morning, everybody. It's Tuesday, February 4th, 2025. I've got all of your news here in one place on the morning rush hour drive to work. Here's the stories we got for you. We're going to start with a little bit of a commentary on episode 2 of Grant's season of The Bachelor. For those of you still watching that show, I'm one of them, but my fuse is short. And then speaking of short fuses and short dress, or maybe no dress at all, we have an update on Kanye and Bianca. People are calling for her to be arrested following the Grammys, and we actually hear from a former FBI agent about whether it's legal to be nude. It was a private event after all. All right, then we've got Blake's lawyer speaking. Blake Lively's lawyers refused to speak yesterday after court. It was sort of decided by public opinion that Justin Baldoni got everything they wanted out of that case, including law and crime lawyers saying they agree with Justin defending himself, so be it so publicly. So we'll get into that whole mess. It's going to be a pretty wild week of discussion before we hear from Blake Lively with whatever new claims she may be making this week. And we've also got Taylor Swift. Chicks in the Office does some nice commentary on her lack of winning any awards at the Grammys. Oh, pray for Taylor. She'll be okay. And then, of course, tariffs on pause. What does this mean for our country and for our wallet? I'll have all those stories and a Super Bowl update. That and more coming next on The Rush. All right, before we get to our stories today, I do want to thank all of my new audience out there. I don't mean to be redundant, but my gratitude is literally beaming out of my soul. I mean, I'm checking Twitter and Instagram and all the people tagging and sharing and following on social media. Thank you to all of our new audience here. I am not going to let you down. I like a lot of eclectic things. I scroll through my TikTok, I find what's interesting to me, and I just bring the stories to you. Like this one for my old millennials out there. I don't know about you guys, but Wedding Crashers was quite an amazing movie. It was actually funny. I found out a friend years later was in the movie and I didn't even know it. And I was like, this was a big movie for me. We didn't have easy access to the internet back in the day. You wanted to see some guys scoring at a wedding, you had to go to Wedding Crashers. Well, will there be a second Wedding Crashers, a Wedding Crasher 2? Here's the update as E-Talk, I think this is a Canadian TV station, talks to Isla Fisher.
Big celebration, 20 years since Wedding Crashers, one of my all-time favorite films. Vince Vaughn last fall said Wedding Crashers 2 is always a possibility. How do we make that happen?
I even got a visa recently to shoot it, and then Owen went and did something. I think he had another commitment, or it will happen. It will happen.
So it's happening?
It will, we don't know when, but it will. But I always get in trouble for saying that, but then they always ring my agent and say, is she available? So it will happen at some point. We're going to do it.
Wow, there it is. A Wedding Crasher 2. Now, I'm not one of those divas who's always like, don't ruin it. The first one was so good. It couldn't possibly be as good. I say take a shot at it. I mean, I don't think Zoolander 2 did too well at the box office, but if Wedding Crasher 2 can, capture that. By the way, the guy who played the weird brother, the painter, bring him back. I want to see all of them back. Bring them back. Bradley Cooper? I mean, he has to be in it in some way, right? You can't do Wedding Crashers 2 without Bradley Cooper, or I will not. I will be boycotting the box office. All right. Well, there's been a lot of flopping going on in the NFL, where you sort of fake fall and you didn't really fall. Kind of like a soccer move, if you ask me. And don't us red-blooded Americans pride ourselves on not flopping? We'll be talking about flopping on the tariffs later on. But first, here's what Roger Goodell says about possibly flagging people for flopping.
The league considered flagging for flopping. This may be a social media question, but I think we all have seen a lot of quarterbacks who...
By the way, my wife would like to get on this game. 10-yard penalty for flopping.
Maybe game or milk the system and the rules. We've seen a lot of guys who maybe are the second retaliator who then get flagged for egregious flailing of arms or... what have you. So is there any consideration to potentially flagging for flopping as some other sports leagues have done?
Well, I can't speak to the other leagues, but I think I guess it depends a little bit on what your definition of flopping is. We have taken very strong stands on teams and players that have not necessarily what we would call the player wasn't necessarily injured on the play. They were trying to use to stop the clock. You may put that into the flopping category.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good use too, is if you fake an injury to stop the clock. You don't want to be doing that. I say this, if a player flops, maybe the referees turn their eye the next play. Let that guy get a little cold clock. I don't know. All right, L.A. District Attorney and LAPD responded to Bianca Censori's nude Grammys look amid calls for her to face legal action. So people called in and say, hey, you got to do something about this. There's kids at the Grammys, and they're just whipping it out, sharing. I mean, if anyone was flopping, it's Bianca Censori, and I kind of blame Kanye for this. Not that she's an adult and has body autonomy, but I have to say it does seem pretty creepy. Like, is she under his spell or something? Either way, her nudity goes unpunished, as reported by TMZ. She showed up nude to the Grammys, and there won't be any consequences because no one at the event raised an issue with Kanye West's wife. All right, so I guess someone would have had to press charges. Here's an update from the unexpected spy, a former FBI agent weighing in.
As a former FBI agent, I actually wanted to talk about Bianca Censori's outfit last night at the Grammys what the possible repercussions of doing something like that are. Y'all know I've talked about Diddy. I've talked about other cases in pop culture. And so I think this one's important to talk about too. So some may or may not know, she wore basically a see-through pantyhose dress with absolutely nothing underneath, with everything exposed. And so here are some of the legal ramifications to doing that, although I do not think that she will ultimately be punished. California has actually pretty strict indecent exposure laws. It's Penal Code 314, Section 1. And basically what it's saying is indecent exposure is intentionally exposing your naked body or genitals to a point that someone could be annoyed or offended. And then it has to sort of meet these different criteria. The first is that you intentionally expose yourself. The second is that you did so in seeking attention. And then the third is you displayed this purposely to offend others. So in my opinion, I think she meets all three of those criteria. So for a first-time offense, it's a fine of up to about $1,000.
So I guess my question is, does that criteria exist if it's a private party, you know? And look, you could argue this. Isn't this kind of strange? I get we live in a world where people are clothed, but it's what God gave us. It's our own body. And if you're not being creepy to somebody else, shouldn't we all be allowed to walk around nude? I think I'm on the side of nudity, to be quite honest. And it's like, sorry, if your kid walks by a naked person, it's like, grow up, Jimmy. Learn a little bit. No flagging for flopping here. I don't know. I mean, you might disagree with that, but hey, it's biblical, right? Adam and Eve, they were naked, weren't they? I don't know. I mean, I guess they had the little fig flower or with petal or whatever. All right, let's do this. Let's cover Taylor Swift. Not cover her with clothes. Let's cover her with praise. Here's Chicks in the Office podcast, which, by the way, someday I'm going to get on there, ladies of Chicks in the Office. I will get on there. I am hell-bent on you guys inviting me over to Barstool to a podcast one day. A boy can dream. Here's what they had to say about how gracious it was for Taylor to enjoy the night, even though she left without any hardware.
Taylor did not win one award.
I think that's a good look for her. She can go to the Grammys, not winning anything, have a good time.
And have a great time.
Yeah.
She was having a great time.
It looked like she was having a great time. I was like, this is why I fucking love her. She's champagne glass in hand, champagne bottle in the other, whooping it up for her friends,
she's having
fun.
a great time.
Yeah, I loved it.
And she knows how celebrated she is. That she could sit there and have a fantastic night. And, you know, she's so used to performing for other people. It's nice for her to get to sit back and watch other performances and just have a good time.
Night for her to have fun. Like, didn't have to worry about performing.
I've seen a lot of people get really mad that she didn't win anything, but I don't think Taylor's mad. So I don't think everyone needs to get mad for Taylor.
No, Taylor's got 14 Grammys. She can sell out any stadium in the world. I mean, literally, if she wants to do a show on Mars, Elon Musk will find a spaceship to bring people to it. You know what I mean? She doesn't need this validation. She's had it. Versus Chappell Roan just got her first one, so we're happy for her. What if all these artists came together and changed the policies in America? You know, I mean, look, you might not like this idea, but can we get Taylor Swift on? I don't know, maybe mother. What's it called? A longer maternity leave. Wouldn't that be nice? Maybe universal childcare. Maybe can we get some people together and pressure our congressman to fight for us with basic livable wages and healthcare? All right, Dave, you've gone too far. Let them play the music. Fine, whatever. You can all live in your world where your moms go back to work 3 hours after giving birth. That's just not the world I want to live in. I say 9 months minimum. 9 months minimum. You're going to go, oh, this is crazy. I gave birth and tilled the land after. I understand. No flagging for flopping over here. Let's reset the deck, change the moods a little bit, and we'll get into the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni drama heard round the world. That story coming next. All right, here we have multiple angles to talk about with the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively court case. They might be speeding up the trial date because they want to keep them from litigating this in the public sphere. Well, the judge tells the attorneys they must watch their words to avoid tainting the jury ahead of the trial. Again, just kindly says, hey, let's not make this any more complicated than it already is, so just keep your mouth shut, right? Well, here's an update from Blake Lively's side. We heard yesterday from Brian Friedman's side, power attorney, right there. Brian Friedman basically said this was a good day for Justin. They didn't get the gag order. They didn't get to choose who the hell deposes them. This is not a bad day. Well, Blake Lively's going to take a victory lap too. Her attorney, Michael Gottlieb and Ezra Hudson, tell TMZ, we are pleased with the result of today's hearing and eager to move forward immediately with discovery in this case. The court granted our request that all attorneys in the matter actually follow the rule of law and not make any statements that could prejudice a jury. This case deals with serious allegations of sexual harassment and retaliation. We will hold the defendants accountable, and we are confident that once all the evidence is submitted in this matter, Miss Lively will prevail. The judge required both sides to abide by New York rules of professional conduct, which prevents lawyers from making statements with a substantial likelihood they could taint a jury. The rules afford attorneys the opportunity to speak with the media to protect their clients from negative publicity. All right, so could Brian Friedman argue he's just responding to the negative publicity that happened from the initial shots fired of the New York Times? Well, I've got several clips to share with you from Law and Crime. Very interesting. In this clip, we've got a lawyer actually doing a reverse Uno and siding with Justin Baldoni. Have a listen to this.
This to you, Brian. Baldoni is doing everything public. Website, unnecessary letter to the judge. Is this part of her complaint regarding a smear campaign?
Well, I mean, if I'm understanding the question correctly, isn't he dignifying her complaint by doing what he's doing? It's really just the opposite. It's a person protecting themselves. He was destroyed in Hollywood as a result of her complaint. And yet what they've now done is they've reversed the narrative, and they've basically said, well, you can destroy me in Hollywood, but you can't destroy me in the world because we got the facts on our side. And he really didn't have a choice. I mean, they put his back up against a wall. They labeled him a creep. And he's now come back and defended himself, which is what you expect people to do in litigation. And Nima's right. Not only was there some brilliance on his PR team, there's been some brilliant lawyering going on here. And I know they're working on the edges, and I know they may go in today and maybe get their wrist slapped a little bit, but they've won. They've won a major battle here in restoring his name. And I think Blake Lively and her team are probably regretting and rethinking maybe how they went about this.
Wow, how about that? Question. So they've won a major battle there, says this lawyer. I'm going to play one more clip from this interview. Fascinating stuff. Have a listen to this.
On YouTube. Do you think that Blake thought she could silence Baldoni, that she started this whole thing? How did she not realize this become big as it is now? So the question I would reframe it, I think it's a good question, is when she filed that lawsuit, or filed the complaint, and then it was published by the New York Times, I mean, public sentiment turns against Justin Baldoni. That was pretty bad. If you look at all the text messages between him and his PR people and his crisis management people, it looked like he devised or was part of a campaign to smear her in the media, and that all of the negative press we saw surrounding Blake Lively in last summer was his doing, and that, allegations that he sexually harassed her on set. Did she not realize that there was a different narrative, that he had the other text messages, footage, and that this might happen? Because I do want to know, buyer's remorse. Do you think right now she might be regretting launching this?
I do, Jesse. I think she grossly underestimated Baldoni's resolve and his response, both legal and PR. And it's turned dramatically. I mean, this is one of the biggest public relations comebacks that I've seen. Let's not forget, Lively and Reynolds have significantly more assets. They were able to convince William Morris Agency to drop Baldoni.
So they're saying this is a giant PR twist for Baldoni to make this comeback. I mean, it really is pretty wild. It's going to make a hell of a documentary. Hey, maybe we'll be in it with all the coverage that we've received. I mean, who knows, right? So again, here we trigger warning. Candace Owens coming next. Here's what she had to say about the case. She went live today. 100,000 people. Yesterday. 100,000 people tuned into her live stream. This is insanity, folks. Here's what she said.
How much my wife weighs to make sure you don't hurt your back. Don't you ever do that again. Like beta male stuff. Well, because they were being crazy early on in 2023, somebody, and I don't know who the person was, okay? Somebody advised everyone to...
People think it's Justin Baldoni's wife. Women's intuition. Hey, you better be getting receipts from that lady over there. She going loco.
To record everything. Somebody had a gut instinct and said, we need to record everything because they were already being accused of things that weren't true, right? Ryan and Blake are insane. They're saying things that didn't happen. She's saying like he said sexy on set. He's like, I said sexy on set because you've said sexy on set. And this is...
By the way, I can totally see this happening. If you're a boss and have a company and one of your employees starts to accuse you of things, it's like, all right, bring out the GoPro cameras. I had to do this once where I was going to record a camera because I was interviewing someone that had such a checkered past that I didn't want down the road them to ever accuse me of anything. I was going to set up a security camera for my own benefit. It sounds crazy, but in this world, boy, is it helpful if you have those receipts.
This is how you discussed wardrobe with me, so I thought it was okay. And like they already can see which way the wind is blowing, okay? So I don't know who gave us advice. I mean, they said record everything. So this is the reason why she didn't think the scene was recorded, or she didn't think that it was on, like they were catching the audio, and they have it, okay? This advice maybe came from Sony, maybe it came from the lawyers, maybe it came from PR, maybe it came from Steve Sarowitz, maybe it came from Justin Baldoni's wife,
Bingo.
Who said start recording everything, okay? Who knows? But because the writing was on the wall early on, they wanted to leave nothing to Ryan and Blake's crazy ass, wild Game of Thrones, dragging, breathing imaginations. And they started recording everything. And I'm talking conversations with execs.
Whoa.
Everything is recorded.
And as we saw, I mean, they're going to have to show how Sony executives were trying to really strong-arm Wayfair and Justin Baldoni while, trying to assuage the relationship between Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. Just goes to show, I mean, folks, we're going to see who's on the right side of the story and who's on the wrong side, who's got a backbone and who doesn't. No offense to the folks like Nick Viall, but like clearly, I think time will tell the batting average of those that give a fair shake at these stories versus those that just, see which way the wind's blowing.
They made we're dealing with an unhinged couple, so we need to cover our asses as a matter of basic safety decision, okay? And boy, oh boy, is that early instinct that somebody had about to pay off. So this is like when the criminals are lying, saying the police officer beat them, but he didn't know the police officer had the body cam on and the CC.
Or by the way, the reverse where the guy's accused of something and then they find a surveillance video of the police. Okay, it goes both ways. Either way, how rich is Candace Owens? She's got 3 different camera angles essentially doing the same thing. Can I get multiple camera angles? I want to be flagged for flopping all day long. Come on, I want production value, cranes. I want a blimp flying overhead. Let's treat this thing like the Super Bowl that it is. And by the way, I don't mean that I wish this didn't exist as far as like I hate cases that are ugly like this where there isn't going to be a winner. Sure, don't get me wrong, Justin Baldoni could come out winning, but in the end, there's still going to be like a stain, a skid mark, as it were, on his career. People that aren't going to want to work with him. Put it this way. Because he's got Wayfair, the production company, he'll be okay. Like, he'll get movies financed. But as an actor, you want to slip into a role, and people are going to look at him and go, oh, you're the thing that the Khaleesi's dragon tried to kill. And again, we'll have to see. Blake says she's got new evidence. I'm holding a very little bit of patience for Blake and her evidence. We'll have to see how that all goes. All right, that's your update. I'm going to have more today. We have a lot to get into regarding this case, so stick around YouTube for that. Coming up next, we're going to discuss the Trump tariffs, the pause, and what this means for all of us. Can we go back to letting the Canadians consume American liquor? I don't know. I honestly don't know. There might be some collateral damage. We'll have that story next. All right, on the eve of tariffs with our friendly neighbors of the North, Donald Trump and Trudeau have announced a 1-month pause on the war that never needed to be. People in Trump's camp are saying this is a genius move. People in the anti-Trump camp are saying he got called out for not having much of a game plan. You guys can decide what side you're on. I'm going to share the story for you.
Or do we know about this deal, this really last-minute deal with Canada's Prime Minister that he says that he struck with President Trump?
Yeah, we're just getting some details. Look, allies around the world, obviously in Mexico and Canada, but also business partners are breathing a sigh of relief. These were sort of set to go into effect tomorrow. I mean, we're talking about sort of coming down to the 11th hour. But look, it was interesting to read this statement from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, because a part of what he's saying is that they're going to implement a plan that they had already planned to implement around the border, suggesting that actually there's not that much that Canada's promising to do that's new. I mean, he wrote about wanting to implement their $1.3 billion border plan, which they announced back in December, which would increase resources to stop the flow of fentanyl.
All right, so this is what I'm going to share. And again, did I not call this or did I not call this? Now, you can say I'm an anti-Trump homer or what, but what we need to do now that Trump is the president, we need to really analyze what the hell's going on in our country. Whether you're pro him or anti him, we're all Americans. Most of us here listening are Americans, and we need to hold our political leaders accountable to do the right thing. There's a lot of collateral damage going on by threatening threatening the tariffs. And here, like I said, there's going to be some sort of nominal victory, a real nothing burger of a victory. Like, for instance, the Mexican tariffs are pushed off 1 month. What was the big victory? That they're going to send troops to the border that they already wanted to do? That Trump's going to try to instill some plan to keep weapons from flowing into Mexico? Because that's what people have to understand. Yes, Mexico has a big cartel issue. We have a fentanyl issue, but the fentanyl's coming from Mexico, I think from China, but through Mexico, right? But a lot of it's coming through illegal points of entry, which isn't going to make a difference if you build a 50-foot high wall, because it's coming in through planes and through shipping and things like that. And then the other is the guns are flowing south. So, we need to not only stop guns from flowing south, but we need to get them off our own streets. But we're too afraid to have that conversation because the NRA is up everyone's ass. So here is what I thought was a very good explanation of Justin Trudeau, a Prime Minister of Canada, and what he had to say about this plan they're implementing and how it was already in effect. So essentially, they were saying, oh, yeah. Oh, no, we'll do this whole plan. Yeah, we'll stop fentanyl at the border. We'll have a czar. We'll do all this. And Trump's like, see, told you so. And they're like, yeah, we were already going to do that already, eh? So here they are.
All right, listen closely. Trump is trying to declare victory over Canada's Trudeau and Mexico's Sheinbaum regarding the tariffs, yet Trump is the one that just caved to them by delaying the tariffs with no concessions whatsoever, and I want to demonstrate that right here. So both Trudeau and Trump just made a statement that there's a new $1.3 billion border plan. Trudeau and Trump list all of these new pluses, like new choppers, new technology and personnel, enhanced coordination. They say 24/7 eyes on the border. But here's the kicker. This plan was announced almost 2 months ago. Read this article. Canada announces $1.3 billion border security plan amid Trump tariff threats. And look at the date. This was the exact plan that was...
Well, what was the metadata? So, no, look, I mean, and it goes to show they had some foresight that these tariffs would be used against them. Is there fentanyl flowing in from Canada? Maybe. I have no idea. I don't know what's going on with the fentanyl. And it's obviously something that needs to be addressed. And at the same time, the issue is so much greater than just stopping it at the border. We need a comprehensive healthcare plan to help everybody out, because we have so many people that are addicted to drugs because they got hooked onto painkillers because of Big Pharma. It's a whole thing, folks. It's so much more complicated than the big bad gate that we need to stop them at. It's like most things are complicated. Now, as far as Trump's art of the deal that he's known for, he has had 4 bankruptcies in his businesses. And I'm not just saying this as a hater. I actually have a family member that did business with him and has nothing but bad things to say about that. And now that he's sort of the boss of the country, how many times can you do the tariff threat before countries say, no, hombre, we ain't going to fly with that shit? China, how big, and now the only thing that the U.S. has going for it is that we buy a lot of junk from overseas. So people want to please us because we buy so much. I like the idea of bringing things back to the U.S. I just don't know if you can do it in such a earthquake-shattering way, although I'm watching whatever's good for the country is good for all of us, right? Now, if that means a lot of, like I said before, collateral damage with business partners in a more globalized world, then I don't know about that. But hey, what the hell do I know? I have a business degree from a state school. All right, flag for flopping. That's how we're going to end the episode. I want to get a flag for flopping button. How fun. By the way, I want to shout out, how funny is this? I have one of these buttons, because remember when I said I wanted a Diet Coke button? Well, our good pal Teresa sent me one, so there it is. But instead of Diet Coke, this is what I put out on the button. This is what I put, because you can customize it. Mommy, Mom! So I just put that there whenever my son's ready for to be breastfed. I just have a button so she knows. All right, that's it for me. I'll be back with a couple videos today on the YouTube channel, and then we'll be back this afternoon to wrap it all up. If you like what we're doing here and you're maybe watching on YouTube, the best way that you can help me out, really, is if you scan that QR code, go to the podcast app on Apple Podcasts on your iPhone, and leave us a 5-star review. Make sure you're subscribed on the audio-only version of this podcast. That will help more people find us, and we can continue to rise the charts. I appreciate everyone for all your support. We'll see you next time. I'm Dave Neal. This is The Rush.